Gaur Pimanandi. Okay. One of our ISKCON rituals. Hare Krishna. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutane Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatadine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Continuing from Madhvacarya's life as a 12-year-old sannyasi, and then his further writings and travels and his visit to Srila Vyasadeva. Have you ever wondered, how is it that Satyayug, Tretayug, Dwapayug, Kaliyug, and Taliyug is bottom, and then it goes right back up to Satyayug? How does that happen? Have you ever wondered? Here's what happens at the end of this particular Kali Yuga. There's a place called Uttar Badri, Upper Badri, according to Sataputta Prabhu. In modern science language, it's higher dimensional space, but Uttar Badri, in a dimension that we don't have access to, that's where Vyasadeva is. And Vyasadeva is not alone. Vyasa is with many super exalted personalities that are beyond material influence and beyond material modes of nature, etc. It's like a Vaikuntha planet. Not a Vaikuntha planet, but it's like, it's opulent like. And so Vyasadeva is there. And as we know, he's a Chiranjiva. He's a living entity that his lifespan is very, very long. And at the end of this Kali Yuga, he'll descend from Uttar Badri and begin Satyayuga way up, because he and his associates are untouched by time and the modes of nature like everybody else is, including ourselves. So in that way, here's another detail that's nice to know from previous sessions. We heard there was a question yesterday about Udupi Krishna and how Udupi Krishna came to Madhva from a chunk of Gopi Chandan. Nice way to find a deity. It was mentioned, and I'll elaborate a little bit, as he was traveling from Udupi to go to the sea, on the way he was composing some stotras or some prayers. And when he returned, those prayers became standard prayers for him and all of his associates, his followers, to recite regularly. And specifically, they were recited while he was engaged in the worship of Udupi Krishna. That is, outside the altar, there were doors, not just curtains, there were doors. And he was inside on the altar worshiping Udupi Krishna. And the sadhus and his associates would chant these prayers. And all the way through, and around the time that they completed the prayers, he would then open the deity door, and they would see, like we do in ISKCON, see the newly dressed and worshipped deity. So one morning, the door didn't open. And the door didn't open, and the door didn't open. They didn't hear any noise behind the door of the altar. So they started worrying and, anxiety. Maybe something happened to Madhvacarya. And so they requested the leading disciple in Udupi, maybe you remember his name from yesterday, Trivikramacharya was requested by the others to go and see if everything's okay. So, without any further ado, he opened the deity door, and here's what he saw. He saw Hanuman worshipping Ramachandra, he saw Bhima worshipping Krishna, and he saw Madhvacharya worshipping Srila Vyasadeva. He's an incarnation, he's his guru, but he's also Shaktivesh avatar. And he was worshipping Vyas. Now, there's much time that passed between our disciplic line doesn't name every single name. It names the prominent personalities without going into detail. That's what our disciplic succession does. And between Madhvacharya and Vyas, there were many personalities. But Vyas gave instructions to Madhvacharya when Madhvacharya went to Uttar Badari. So that's where this presentation ends. And the next presentation, which isn't going to happen while I'm here, is what happened when he went to Uttar Badari. What was the exchange? What was the place like? Like I mentioned, it's like the spiritual world. It's not the heavenly planet. It's not the spiritual world. It's like the spiritual world. And the description is pretty fantastic. And the personalities there are pretty fantastic. And their leader, Vyasadeva is the person who they all look up to. So he went to, in the biography, this biography is Su Madhva. It speaks of Badari. It's just a particular spelling that they use for some reason. So Badrinath or Uttar Badri is also used. So that's our discussion for this evening. Remember where we ended yesterday. He completed his education. He gave his Guru Dakshin to his Guru, which was a clear, comprehensive explanation of Aitari Upanishad to his Guru, because his Guru also liked, but Madhva knew the meaning and explained it, and his Guru was very happy. So now that his education is completed, 12-year-old boy, he's considering what's next. And his contemplation is that he should take sannyas, and there's a reason. And he does take sannyas, and he takes sannyas from the sadhu sannyasi named Achyuta Pragya, or Achyuta Pragya Tirtha. And we'll hear a little bit more about Achyuta Pragya. At the age of 12, after graduation from his academic studies, Vasudev's mind was constantly occupied in contemplating Hari, and he had a service to do. His service was to correct the misunderstandings and misinterpretations that have been propagated by Shankaracharya primarily, and then different schools and divisions messing up the Vedas. So he was mandated by Narayana to come and make proper commentary. And the sannyas part, this is from his biography. People turn towards God and contemplation of his grace and virtues only when they lose interest in materialistic pleasures. At that stage, men emulate gurus and elders whom they esteem. Therefore, I will adopt the Paramahansa sannyas, as it will reveal my intrinsic disinterest in materialistic pleasures. So he's leading by example. He already has no inclination for material pleasure, so sannyas is not difficult for him. It's quite natural for him. 12-year-old boy, he starts this practice of offering his obeisances to everything and everyone in all directions. And his mother and father are wondering, Vasudeva, what's going on? And Vasudeva said that he was offering his obeisances to the paraphernalia of Narayana, which is everything, right? I mean, from a spiritual conception, everything comes from a source. The source of everything is, you could say, Hari or Krishna or Narayana. And the source has emanations, and there's emanations in relation to Krishna or Krishna's. So it's Krishna's paraphernalia. His intention, of course, if you're going to take sannyas or going to make spiritual progress of any kind, there has to be a teacher or guru. So he then starts this quest for a guru. Now, he's understanding everything, but he's setting an example. So this young boy, 12-year-old boy, he heard of an old ascetic in a village just a little bit north of Udupi, Bandarkeri. Anybody here from that area, from Kerala? Badari. It's I know it's one of our classes. Somebody is from that area. They know the place. It's a nice place. So he was a very old sannyasi. He was in this line from the Shivali Brahmana community. You heard about that yesterday, day before yesterday. Shivala Brahmana community. And the particular line that he was from was, as the Shivali Brahmanas were also, they had a strong liking for Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's called in this book the Bhagavata Sampradaya. And his name was, the elder sannyasi in charge of this math was Achyuta Preksha, one who seeks Lord Achyuta Preksha. His actual name or sannyas name was Purushottam Tirtha. You know how sometimes people have more than one name. Achyuta Pragya Tirtha, or Achyuta Preksha, or Purushottam Tirtha, all meaning the same person. So this biography says that previously, generations and generations ago, in a previous life, he was an ascetic who requested alms only from exalted Vaishnavas. And for several years, he stayed with the Pandavas as an ascetic and accepted alms from the cooking of Draupadi. Now, in this biography, the whole picture is amongst the Pandavas, Bhima is especially important because he's not different. So Hanuman, Bhima, and Madhvacarya. So his teacher had been in the association of the Pandavas and had taken the cooking of Draupadi. So Draupadi, in this book, in this composition, she has a very special place because she's the wife of one of the wives, or the wife, excuse me, of Bhima. So she has an exalted position in this biography. She's like Saraswati, or the goddess of fortune or something in other literatures. Her role is very important in this biography. So that he took Draupadi's cooking, that's a big statement. Big statement anyways. And so he, in his previous life, had become purified by that association by her cooking. The sannyas line specifically was a line that came from Durvasa Muni. And of course, this is after Durvasa Muni had become influenced by, and had become Vaishnava-like, although previously he was not. It was after this exchange with King Ambarish. So he had become a Vaishnava, Durvasa Muni, and he was a renunciate, and this Achyuta Preksha had taken sannyas in his line. It's similarly in the Bhagavad Marg sannyas order. However, because although he had taken sannyas in this Bhagavad Marg sampradaya, for over 400 years, that sampradaya kind of got messy or mixed, or they waffled a bit, being under the influence, because Shankaracharya was very powerful and his teachings were propagated widely and people got influenced. Even this line, Bhagavad Marg Sampradaya, got influenced. And so their Bhagavad Marg teachings and practices got a little mixed up or interspersed with the Advaita philosophy. And the biography says that the monks or the sadhus weren't sufficiently fixed or strong in their own teachings. So that tells us something about what we need to do, right? You don't have to be a sannyasi, but you need to be fixed in what our teachings are, because time has a way of destroying things and morphing things and making things not the same that they were when they started. It's a concern. Any tradition has that concern. So read Prabhupada's books and live them and teach them and maintain the integrity. That's the message. There's this history. Achyuta Preksha had a guru, and towards the end of his guru's life, his guru called him because he was the leading sannyasi amongst his disciples, and he spoke to him confidentially. Although we are dressed as Advaitins, we are not Mayavadis. Mayavada propounds that when the knowledge that I am myself Parabrahman is fully cognized and assimilated, there will be nothing else existing other than the capital S self. This tenet is not justifiable. That's his sannyas guru speaking to him on his deathbed. Therefore, do not ever accept it. The tenet of Atma Aikya, we know what Atma means, and Aikya is Eka, the oneness between Atma and Brahman. There's no distinction between Atma and Brahman. The self is Brahman. I am Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi, Atma Aikya. Prescribed for contemplation by Mayavada has not been realized by me or my guru or any of his predecessors ever. So I advise you, worship Mukunda, who alone can give moksha for getting the correct tattva gyan. And after a short while, his guru left this world. So here is Achyuta Preksha. The portrayal, the profile, is he is from this school. He and his school has been, at least externally, looking like Advaitins and wearing tilak like Advaitins, but keeping some faith in Vishnu and Bhagavad Dharma. So a little messy. So he's getting this very, very clear, explicit, strong direction from his guru, and he's a faithful person and a learned person. He wants to realize the fullness of what he has just heard. So he decided to go to Udupi, which is not far away, and worship, we heard yesterday, and so forth, this Lord Ananteshwara. Was anybody not with us and would need a little introduction to who Lord Ananteshwara is? Yes? Okay. Lord Ananteshwara, there's a long history that goes way back. And there was a king, and many things happened. He received this benediction. He was going to expand his kingdom, and it was advised to expand his kingdom, he should perform an Ashvamedha Yagya. The Brahmanas advised him, and while he was preparing the ground where the yagya was going to take place, using the plow, he killed the snake. And, that may not mean something to somebody, but this king was very, very disturbed, and he underwent severe austerities for a long time, because the place is Parashram Kshetra. There's some history of how that became named Parashram Kshetra. He worshipped Parashram and Lord Shiva and underwent severe austerities, and one evening he had a dream. In the dream, both Shiva and Parashram appeared and said, "We know your anxiety. Here's how you can get relief from your anxiety, for the sin of killing a snake. One, make a silver pedestal or altar, a platform, and the two of us will appear as a deity on top of that silver pedestal." There's some Sanskrit nomenclature and Tulu language nomenclature. 2, establish 4 temples to snakes in 4 directions. 3, give in charity your weight in gold. So the language, the local language, is sometimes called Tulu because a scale, the word in their local language is Tulu. So Tuluna became another name of that place. And then this deity, Lord Ananteshwara, manifested on that silver platform or altar. And over a period of time, we heard that the Shivali Brahmanas accepted this deity as the center of their community, recognizing that it's a combined form of Parshuram and Lord Shiva. So they worship Lord Shiva as a Vaishnava and Parshuram as an incarnation, Shaktivesh avatar. And there was a lot, the father of Madhvacarya for 12 years went some distance to the Ananteshwara altar to offer prayers to Ananteshwara that he could have a qualified son. In other words, there's a long history. So this Lord Ananteshwara has great prominence in the whole area, and particularly also for this Achyuta Preksha Sannyasi. So he went to Udupi, and before the deity of Lord Ananteshwara, constantly was praying to understand the instruction and how to apply the instruction of a sannyas guru. One day, while in deep thought on the matter, Lord Anteshwara entered the body of an ordinary man who approached Achyuta Preksha, because this had happened, there's another earlier incident, and said, "Know that I will soon send you the best of disciples to fulfill your mission to your guru and to me." Pretty amazing. This is within this biography. So this Udupi wasn't his home. His home was a little bit north of Udupi, and the Udupi temple, the center of the Udupi area, was this Lord Ananteshwara. So at that time, he was living near the temple in Badari Mutt, and little 12-year-old Vasudev, he started visiting to Achyuta Preksha's ashram, and more or less became attached to him, became a prospective sannyas disciple, receiving training, observing his behaviors, etc., etc. And Achyuta Preksha had an inspiration, the biography says, a divine intuitive feeling that this was the best of disciples that Lord Ananteshwara had told them would come to him and would fulfill the mission of his life and his guru's life. Da, 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 da. Dad. Madhvacarya, his father, started getting a little worried about his son getting too much attached to Achyuta Preksha, and maybe he'll take sannyas. Uh-oh. Terrible, right? It's wonderful, but his father was thinking separation. So he, the father, and the mother, Vedavati, they also visited Udupi. Now their home is east Prajaka Kshetra, so north, southeast. And they went to Udupi, and they visited their son, who was in the ashram of Achyuta Preksha, and he became his student. And they made an appeal, please don't become a sannyasi. And we're getting old, you're our only son, and who's going to look after us as we get older? And Vasudev was not budging. He was sympathetic, but he had a mission. He had a higher order mission from Lord Narayan, and he knew it. So he didn't flinch. In desperation, his father paid obeisances to his son and pleaded with him. Now, his father is very learned, and his son is very learned. So his son said, this is just proof. Anyone who is older and pays obeisances to a younger, it means that younger person is the sannyasi. So you're just confirming that I should take sannyas. Thank you very much. Madhvacarya saw his son is very determined, also very smart. And so he went home, not satisfied, disturbed, agony of separation. He was feeling separation before there was separation. So he came once again, not this time with his wife, but he came trying again. And he was not getting much response. So the father became angry. And in his anger, the father said, if you do this, then I now take an oath that I will fast until death if you become a sannyasi. So what did he do? Vasudev took his upper garment and ripped it to pieces and wore it as a kopyan and said, go ahead, Go ahead with your threat. Ooh, showdown. And then he said to his father that the act of renunciation is very pleasing to the Supreme Lord, and it wouldn't be right for you as a father to ask me to not do something that's pleasing to the Supreme Lord. No, it's a philosophical chess match. And then his father's going to make another chess move. He said, in Manu Samhita, it's stated that a son has no better and more sacred duty than taking care of his parents in their old age. Vasudeva, you're our only son, and 2 elder brothers, they died, and if you leave, then we'll be unprotected, and so you according to Manu Samhita, you can't do this, or shouldn't do this. But remember, his son's also very scripturally learned. The scriptures recommend that whenever a man gets the inner urge for renunciation, he should take the oath of being an ascetic immediately. Although I have completely renounced the world, I will not take sannyas before an alternative protector is arranged for you. Now what happened is they had another son. But, he's Madhvacarya, the son, and he's Vayu. Madhvacarya said, I yield. You're very, very careful. Learned, and not like exactly I'm defeated, but I accept. But what about your mother? She'll be broken. So the son paid obeisances to his father, seeking his permission, and he gave his consent. He gave his consent, provided your mother gives her consent. Of course, later he went and told his mother, don't give your consent. But he has consent from his father. And after some time, they did have another son. And so he, Vasudeva, visited his home and said to his mother, this newborn child will look after you. He's your new son. Now, he knew that his father, Madhvacarya, had told his mother, Vedavati, don't say yes. Say no. So then Vasudeva said to his mother, if you wish to see me again sometime, please permit me to accept the renounced order of life. If not, I will go away from this place and never return, and you'll never see me again. And she knew he was determined. It wasn't just cute talk. He's going to take sannyas. So she figured, better I see him again. If he takes sannyas, at least he can come back. But he's going to take this vow that he'll never come back again. So go ahead, take sannyas. Chess match. And he became victorious. Both mother and father gave their consent. So now he goes back to this temple where Achyutapreksha is the sannyasi. This is another deal. This young boy that was born as Madhvacarya's second son took care of his parents until his parents departed this world. And then the second son became a sannyasi disciple of Madhvacarya. That sannyasi disciple of Madhvacarya was named Vishnu Tirtha, and he was placed in charge of one of the 8 maths surrounding Udupi Krishna temple. So he went back and told the Achyutapreksha, I'm ready. My parents have given their permission. And The procedures for sannyas initiation were being arranged, but he already knew what they were, although he's not a sannyasi. So he was, suggesting and making sure the sequence was right, and pretty precocious young man. So he stayed for 1 year serving his guru, and at the end of that period of time, he received the sannyas mantras, and now he's around 18. So he started heading for sannyas ashram when he was 12. The bell rang when he was 18. And on that very day, he, like his father, went to the Ananteshwara temple. He was given the sannyas named Purnapragya. He paid his obeisances before the deity, Ananteshwara, and the deity manifested in a personal form and picked him up and held him in his arms. This is according to this biography. And then the Lord told him, so here's some instruction. You had always meditated on me for a long time for learning the correct tenets of Vedanta. I am giving you Purna Pragya as your boon. That's to Achyuta Preksha. So Achyuta Preksha Achyuta Preksha got a benediction directly from Ananteshwara deity. Now, he's a sannyasi. He's gone from the name Vasudev to Purnapragya, and he now has a sannyas danda, and he's going to establish this sarovar called Madhvacarya. As a young 18-year-old sannyasi, he wanted to go take bath in the sacred Ganges. So he asked Achyuta Preksha for his blessing, permission to go take bath in the Ganges. And Achyuta Preksha was reluctant because he was feeling very attached to his sannyas disciple. So he went to make a prayer before the deity, the Lord Ananteshwara deity. And then the deity again manifested himself before Purnapragya and informed him, you don't need to go to the Ganges. I'll bring the Ganges here. And that place was established by Ananteshwara deity, and there's what it looks like today. And he took his sacred bath in that place. And there's the deity of Mother Ganga. The place is called Madhva Sarovar. So I'm not sure exactly where the deity is. I don't think it's at that center place out there. Maybe it is. But it's a well-established pilgrimage place. So he took his bath, Madhva Sarovar. 40 days after he took sannyas, another drumroll, big event. The celebrated Digvijay Pandit named Vasudev Pandit came to town with a lot of followers, and he wanted to have a debate because that was his thing. And he was expecting this special arrangement with Achyuta Preksha because Achyuta Preksha was a celebrated sannyasi, and he wanted to have a debate with him. So the stage was set, big festival. There's going to be a big debate between Vasudev, this big scholar, Digvijay Pandit, and the local scholar. So many people came at short notice. Madhva and Achyuta Preksha sat. They began the debate. This is now from this biography. And for 3 days, Vasudeva Pandit went on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And according to this biography, it wasn't even really clear what his particular arguing point was. He just liked to argue, good, logic and debate. And the people were impressed because he was a learned fellow. And when he finished, the disciple, Sannyasi, Purnapragya, was the first to reply. And in his reply, he repeated almost verbatim. Now, he didn't take 3 days to repeat, but he reiterated the points that the opposing Vasudeva Pandit had made. So it was really clear that he knew what had been stated, almost verbatim. And then, hearing all of this, he began to speak nonstop, smashing all the arguments of Vasudeva Pandit. And everyone was in an uproar because it was very clear that Vasudeva Pandit had been defeated. And his sannyas guru, Achyutapreksha, understood this is really a special young man. And I want to train him further. So there's a particular doctrine known in the Advaita circuit called Ishta Siddhi. Ishta Siddhi is an Advaita doctrine. So his guru, wanted to teach him Ishta Siddhi. So they sat together for some time with some other disciples, and the very first verse was the starting point. And his guru, Achyutapreksha, explained the starting point verse in many different ways and so forth. Just hearing the first verse, that Purnapragya said there's 32 mistakes in the first verse. And here's what was stated, here's the mistake. It's very similar to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's discussions with Digvijay Pandit and Keshava Kashmiri, and 100 verses in Sanskrit, and verse 64 there's some mistakes. The details are different, the principle is quite similar, and earlier chronologically also. So he decided, Purnapragya decided, it's not worth studying this thing. 32 mistakes in the first verse. So why waste our time? Now, there were other students who were attending this discussion. And those other students then began the seed of what was Madhvacarya's mission, like to take this Advaita doctrine and diffuse it, defeat it, and replace it with Vaishnava teachings, the proper Siddhanta. So, I'll just say it again. There was a predominance during this period of time. That's why Madhvacharya appeared. There was the predominance of being unable to defeat, and therefore, to some degree at least, accepting Advaita doctrine. Not necessarily that was their heart's disposition, but it was prominent and prominent and prominent, and just kind of washed other things away and left that. So the students, as the teacher himself, was in that space. And Madhvacharya had come to change all that. So this in this biography, this was a very important, not turning point, but a beginning point, the seed of doubt in just going along with Advaita doctrine. Then there's another historical incident. Now, Achyutapreksha came from a Bhagavad school, Sampradaya. So he was giving a discourse on Srimad Bhagavatam, and there were some 5 or 6 other disciples, and they were reading some manuscripts from the Bhagavatam. Now, we don't have this problem. We don't have this problem because we have Prabhupada's BBT version of Bhagavatam. But before there was the BBT, there were different versions of Bhagavatam. So not necessarily they were like sharply contrastingly different, but there were different versions of the Bhagavatam. And so the Achyuta Preksha was giving a discourse, and the disciples were studying several manuscripts with different texts, not purports, not Bhaktivedanta purports, but different text. Maybe you've come across this. Sometimes in our Acharya's commentaries, they'll just remark that saying there's other versions, instead of saying this, it says that. And the reason for their making such a comment is because there are different versions. Now, our disciplic, fortunately for us, our disciplic lines, starting with the six Goswamis and going down, they had a very clear idea. But going back in time, there wasn't such a clear idea. And so while they're hearing their guru explaining, looking at different manuscripts of the Bhagavatam, Purnapragya said, this is the original. This is the Vyasadeva original Srimad Bhagavatam. And Achyuta Preksha, his guru, was a little miffed and said, how is it that you can determine this specific text is correct? Which is a reasonable question. And Purnapragya said, this to text alone is acceptable. Then his guru said, okay, if you say it's acceptable, then I want you to recite fifth canto, because there's sections of the fifth canto that are just prose. Recite them, and we'll see. If you understand clearly, then you recite them. So without looking at the text, he began reciting section from the fifth canto, or the other disciples are looking assiduously at the text and saying, he's got it. That's it. There's different ones that say different things, but the one that he just recited, that's the one. They were amazed. The whole prose section of the fifth canto, he knew it before it, without looking at the text. So he asked, his guru asked him, how are you able to know all this? He said, from previous lives. Simple answer. Now, just as we discussed yesterday, I'll repeat this. To me, it reminds me of Chaitanya Charitamrita, where there's this and there's that and there's the other. Amazing pastimes of Nimai, and later on with, as a sannyasi, young sannyasi, etc., etc. So maybe people who read Chaitanya Charitamrita don't know, like we know from, some of the persons here from childhood, they're learning all this. Or some of us started later. And so there may have been like, how do I know this is true kind of question in our mind. And similarly, when reading all this stuff about Madhvacarya and knowing which version of the Bhagavatam was the correct one and being able to recite it verbatim, like, what? But it's not, there's I forget what the English word is. It's not just gross exaggeration. There's a word for it. I forget the word. Heliography or something like that. So it's not just makeup, not fiction. These are these authors, going back to a section from earlier, the authors of this biography to Trivikramacharya and his son Narayana Panditacharya, they're highly respected scholars, and they had personal experience with Madhvacarya for their whole life. So it's accepted as authoritative as much as Krishnadas Kaviraj's Chaitanya Charitamrita is the most authoritative. There was different biographies of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life, but most authoritative. We gave the explanation, I don't need to repeat. he heard from the right source. And he was so scholarly. I mean, other writings that he wrote was in Sanskrit, very, very, very high in his grasp of the scripture, and he was the right person to be the compiler of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's biography. There's others, Lochan Das Thakur and others and others. It's the best authoritative version of Lord Chaitanya's life without any exaggeration, just as it is. So mentioning this because some of this is pretty far out. But the persons who compiled it, not just amongst the Madhvas, but, scholars that generally don't agree with anybody about anything, they acknowledge this is the most authoritative description of Madhvacarya's life. I'm repeating it because I think it's important to repeat it. He just kept it simple, said, I've learned this in previous lives. So now he's a young sannyasi. After 40 days after his accepting sannyasa, this big debate, and he prevailed, and then further activities with his co-students. And now he's in the process of doing what he appeared in this world to do, which was set the record straight with what the Vedas actually say. So he's giving teachings. He knows it already because he's who he is Vayu. But he's giving teachings. He's developing a systematic presentation of the Vedas, and the Vaishnava rendering of the Vedas according to the line of Brahma and Vyas, and then him. So he's in the role of the student of Achyuta Preksha. Every day some new passages were interpreted, some new topic was discussed, some old dogma was challenged, and new light was thrown. He's building his doctrine in this little sannyas school that he's a participant in. And when he spoke, people really liked it because it was true. And it was a big relief for them because in their heart of hearts, they were worshippers of Vishnu. And he was peeling off this covering of Advaita doctrine, one by one by one by one, and revealing Vishnu. And people liked it. These honest people, they liked it. They felt big relief. So the opposition was being confronted, and the truth, which was the purpose of his appearance, was awakening. And people liked to hear him. And as time passed, emphasis upon Srimad Bhagavatam, because you may remember, this whole Shivali Brahmana community was from the Brahma Bhagavata line. His guru was from a Bhagavat line, and now Srimad Bhagavatam is appearing brighter and brighter and brighter as time passes. And the chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam became more and more illuminating, and he's becoming a celebrity as a young sannyasi. So this is just a social commentary. There's no work more elevating to a Vaishnav because every chapter breathes the spirit of soul-stirring devotion, this glorification of the Bhagavatam, and every pastime narrated conveys lessons of lofty self-surrender and loving worship. So these became themes or pillars out of his Navaprameya, or 9 pillars of his teachings. There's a whole other section that's just like, what are the essential teachings of Madhvacarya, but that's not this class. So his guru, Achyuta Preksha, sees that he is such an outstanding personality, although very young. He decides, as was spoken audibly by Lord Ananteshwara, the deity, that you'll receive a you'll receive a disciple who will help you fulfill your mission and your guru's mission. And his guru's mission was what we heard already a little earlier this evening. So he decided, Achyuta Preksha, his sannyas guru, decided to give him a special title. His birth name was Vasudev, as you see on the screen. His sannyas name was Purnapragya. Now he wants to give him another title, an honorific title kind of thing, Anandatirtha. There are lots of Hare Krishna devotees with the name Anandatirtha, and they're all nice devotees that I know. So here it is. Achyuta Preksha decided he's going to anoint him. Achyuta Preksha is going to anoint him as Anandatirtha. And in this biography, it gives this little description of an analogy. And that is, a young son of a king is given a title, the inheritor, future inheritor of the throne, the crown prince. And he's going to bring fame to the kingdom of the king. So that's the mood of Achyuta Preksha. I've been gifted by the Lord of a very, very, very special disciple. I want to honor it and have him propagate the teachings with this special title, Anandatirtha. So he was then officially, although his guru was there, he's made officially the head of the mutt. And as a young sannyasi, the head sannyasi of the whole mutt, with the title Anandatirtha. And here's some etymology behind the name Anandatirtha. Ananda, he was fixed in bliss, and he would be giving the teaching that would also give people bliss. And he's the tirtha, the resting place of all of that. So it was an honorific title, and it stuck. Now comes challenges. Be successful, guaranteed there's going to be challenges. Prabhupada taught it. He said it many times, and it's true. And so different persons came to Udupi to test the waters because they heard of the notoriety of this young sannyasi, and it was one of the kind of sporting things for traveling pundits to do, was go and challenge another pundit. And, some came for the challenging purpose, some came for the learning and the association purpose. And again and again and again, different people from different backgrounds came, and he became very accomplished at recognizing the fundamental tenets of different teachings, and expressing that he understood them, and expressing their shortcomings, and giving the alternative. And so in this way, he now has another name, Madhvacarya. This is his fourth name. For example, this biography of his life says, Achyuta Preksha had a sannyasi friend. And the sannyasi friend had many disciples. And they were particularly, this sannyasi friend was particularly trained in tarka, or logic. And you may know some people that are good logicians. Something that kind of has a tendency to go along with that is pride. Sometimes, but usually. So the topic that was chosen to be a topic of discussion was Anuman. So those of us who have been around a little bit in the Hare Krishna movement, there are three ways of knowing things: Pratyaksha, Anuman, and Shabda. Pratyaksha, direct sense perception. Anuman, reason and logic. So these are people that really, they're into reason and logic, and tarka, convincing and approaching the absolute truth by that path. That's their idea. And although they recognize they have to also look to scripture or shabda, it is a valid path Anuman, our path is a valid path. So they had a big debate. And after hearing what they had, because the visitor speaker had the floor first, he said what he had to say. And after hearing what was said, standing alone, the counter argument is it has its place, but standing alone, it can't itself be valid. There's given this biography what the back and forth arguments were. Buddhists came, Vadhi Simha, Vaisheshika Brahmana, those are different schools. We don't need to go into what the Vaisheshika teaching is, but they also came, they get the picture at least. Many persons came and wanted to test the waters. Madhvacarya was more than willing, because his interest wasn't pinning people to the floor and having them say, I give up, uncle, I surrender. His purpose was clearing the air of misinterpretations and misunderstandings of the Vedas, and in its place establishing the proper understanding of the Vedas. So he was getting the warm-up presentation and building and building and building his vada, or his doctrine. Now, his guru gave some good advice. Good advice is, it's one thing, it's okay that the refutation of wrong understandings has its place, but you should establish the proper understanding. So he requested Ananda Tirtha to write his commentary on Brahma Sutra. So he has been building, but now he's got to put it in writing. And so sure enough, very quickly, he began composing his commentary on Brahma Sutra, or we know it as Vedanta Sutra. So now he's a celebrity. He not only has defeated other people, he's established the proper understanding of Brahma Sutra, and now this new title, Madhvacarya, is given to him, indicating the etymology. Madhu, something that's very sweet or nectarian, and Acharya, so the Acharya that gives something very sweet, similar to Ananda Tirtha. So now he has 4 names. From his birth name, to his sannyas name, to the Prince Regent, then head of the Mat, to now this great Acharya that has a very unique and very strong and very special doctrine. This is more on the etymology. So before he goes to meet Vyasadeva, he's going to do a road test. He's going to take his teachings and travel around and present his teachings, because he's now compiled this commentary in Brahma Sutra. He, Ananda Tirtha, asked his guru, Achyuta Preksha Tirtha, permission to go on a pilgrimage. And guru was attached, but he yielded, attached in a spiritual sense. And he agreed on the condition he could come with him. And so they went in the southerly direction throughout South India. And there's a map of some of the places they went. There's a photograph of one of the places they went. One of the places they went was a place where Achyuta Preksha had many followers. And it's a place called Vishnu Mangalam. There's a temple of Vishnu Mangalam pictured on the right. And the map in the center shows where that is. Later, much later, Trivikram Panditacharya, we mentioned his name several times already. They hadn't met yet, because they met after Madhvacarya was Madhvacarya, and some renown was there. I'll go back because his position is very important. Two things. According to these biographies, at the time of Madhvacarya, when he was still youngster, both on the southwest side and southeast side of India, in Puri, and in this um, Parashram Kshetra area, there were two especially well-known, celebrated scholars. One of them was Trivikram. I'll just retell. Trivikram had a younger brother. The younger brother had become Madhvacharya's disciple. He was very trusted by Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya was famous for gathering scriptures, and he entrusted the care of a number of those very precious scriptures to this brother of Trivikramacharya. Trivikramacharya, being a super scholar, was not satisfied with what was out there in the conventional scholarly world of the understanding of the Vedas. He saw discrepancies and so forth. So he wanted to have a very thorough, comprehensive discussion. So it took place. And I forget the number of days, 15 days? Something like that. A 15-day discussion with Madhvacharya on Prasthantrayi. You've heard that term before? We're familiar with the word pramana. So it's similar. It's not the same, but it's similar. Trayi means three. So Shabda Praman. No, that's Praman, excuse me. Logic, Shruti Prasthan, and Smriti Prasthan. What's the first one? Something like Tarka Prasthan, but it's not. Nyaya, there we go. Nyaya Prasthan, Vedanta Sutra. Shruti Prasthan, the Upanishads. Smriti Prasthan, the supportive literature. Nyaya. So he, Trivikramacharya, wanted to have a discussion on understanding the Vedas through these three lenses. 15 days discussion with Madhvacharya, and he accepted. He understands, and I want him as my guru. So Trivikramacharya, this discussion took place at this location, this Vishnu Mangalam place, because he lived nearby there, and he, Trivikramacharya, was already recognized in the world as being a celebrated person. Now he's taking shelter of Madhvacharya as his guru. And he had written several commentaries on this and that, and he was a luminary. So that's the place where they met. So now he's with his guru Achyutapreksha, going to a place where there were many followers of Achyutapreksha, in this place known as Vishnu Mangalam, in a southerly direction from Udupi. There's a lot of bananas. So showing his Bhima-like capacity for appetite, one person after a big, big meal brought a bunch of 200 bananas after a big meal. 200 bananas after a big meal, and asked him, please take them. So he did. He ate every single one. I mean, he has different skills, right? That's one of them. They went to many places together. Here's a nice drawing of a deity of Lord Mahavishnu, and with Shri and Bhu by his side in the front. Trivandrum, deity. He came before the deity of Ananta Padmanabha and offered his prostrated obeisances. This is like the travelogue as he traveled in South India with Achyuta. He had a debate from a sannyasi from the Advaita Sampradaya in Trivandrum. And then later, Madhva went to Rameshwaram through Kanyakumari. At Rameshwaram, it's the travelogue, he offered his obeisances to Lord Vishnu, who is present within the Shivalinga, and stayed in Rameshwaram for the 4 months of the rainy season. And then here he again met that same Advaita sannyasi, some further follow-up discussion. He's establishing his doctrine, he's establishing his presence, his prominence, much like, different from, but much like what Shankaracharya traveled extensively to make his doctrine well known. He went to Sri Rangam. He went to another temple, Bhu Varaha temple. Nice deity, Bhu Varaha. And while staying at a Brahmana's house, he came to know, here comes another miracle, that the village, the people in the village had very little water. So what did he do about that? He took compassion and created a pond using his danda. Remember? Danda Tirtha? So he had a danda and he just went boom, boom, boom. And water came out. I can't do that. But he can do that. So that place that had satisfied both the pregnant wife and the people in the village, he created a second Danda Tirtha, as he had done for his school teacher's wife. So now he's a big celebrity. And he's now going to give some teachings on Aitri Upanishad. And there was a big debate, big discussion. Madhva told his hearers that every Vedic utterance conveyed at least 3 meanings. Verses from Mahabharata had at least 10 meanings, and that each word in Vishnu Sahasranam had at least 100 meanings. So somebody challenged him. Oh yeah? Let's hear it. Let's hear 100 meanings from one of the verses, one of the names in Vishnu Sahasranam. He accepted the challenge, and with no effort. And he has kept going and going and going. The pundit said, all right, we believe you. But he kept going until he could establish it's not exaggeration. And they had difficulty just following his explanations because he's an exceptional personality. So here's a map showing places where he went. There's parts of Karnataka, and this the map of his pilgrimage. He went from Tamil Nadu back up towards Udupi. And again, he met scholars from the Advaita school, and they had some debates and discussions. And then he returned to Udupi. There's a nice photograph of the Udupi Krishna deity, isn't it? Nice. And we're almost done for this evening. He is going to next, now that he has this comprehensive picture of Brahma Sutra in writing, and he's road tested it, and now he's going to go to Vyas to get confirmation. Now, I said the other day, you see that little thing in the left-hand corner? There's a book stand and some smoke coming out of it. It means I'm supposed to read something to you. That's my cue. But I didn't print it, so I'll just tell you. I mentioned at the beginning. It's a very nice description, very, very sweet description of upper or Uttar Badri. And it's like Vaikuntha. Not Vaikuntha, but it's like Vaikuntha. It's where Vyas is and will descend from at the end of Kali Yuga to jumpstart Satya Yuga. Things will pull way back up again because the elevated status of the persons who reside with Vyas is quite exceptional. So in this biography, it describes what he saw. It describes how Vyas was seated, like you see, with the strap around his knees in a yoga posture at all times. And he not only confirmed what Madhva had written was correct, but he gave him further elaborate teachings, which of course Madhvacarya could assimilate. And then there became further renderings of further writings based upon hearing from Vyas. So that's our little presentation for this evening on Madhvacarya. And another time we'll go visit Badri, Uttar Badri, and hear what he taught and hear about the place, etc. And this is our last slide. This is, of course, Srila Prabhupada looking out at some audience somewhere. And what's on his mind? You know, he similarly had a mission. And he was not at any time not conscious. He was not at any time not conscious of his mission. At the same time, he's a person that had a relationship with Bhakti Siddhanta, and he was carrying forward his mission in different circumstances, quite flexible, quite creative, and quite empowered, as was Madhva. You know, different person with a different time and set of circumstances. So Madhva accomplished what he was requested to do. And very powerful. Following another very, very powerful person. Adi Shankaracharya was a very powerful person. He influenced, a zillion people. And is still influencing a lot of people. It's, one of the big obstacles that we come across when, there's materialism and there's impersonalism. It's very, very strong. Not necessarily, explicit, I am God, but yet impersonalism in its different shades. So we owe a great deal of indebtedness to Madhvacharya and the work that he did. There's differences we mentioned, but the essences are quite important and quite strong. And so here we are, the Hare Krishna movement, trying to propagate there is one supreme living entity who is the source of everything, and we're all his servants. Those pillars, two pillars of Madhva's teachings, are core to our lives. And then there's, of course, details. Any discussion?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you. I had a question. So Vayu is a position, right? It's a post. Vayu, Surya, Chandra. So Madhvacharya was, so whoever the personality occupied that post was incarnation of that personality. Where did Vayu get the knowledge of the Vedas, that personality?
I don't know for sure the history, but my intuitive sense is from Brahma. Because Brahma is the original receiver of all the Vedas, and Brahma shared the knowledge of the Vedas with the Devas. I don't know of any particular scriptural reference that says what I just said. It's intuitive. Up front, there's two. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So Maharaj, my question is that like how Madhvacharya went all over the south testing the grounds of his commentary on Brahma Sutra. And then later we have other acharyas also, like Ramanujacharya, who also presented their viewpoints.
That wasn't later, it was prior. That's
prior.
okay, that's okay.
Okay.
But the point still remains.
So the point is that how is it that like it's the same truth but different viewpoints are coming out of it, but still it's like, I mean, they are all trying to basically oppose against the philosophy of Advait, but still there are different viewpoints coming out.
Why not? You're saying why, I'm saying why not? Someone said it a different way. Why not one sampradaya? Why 4 sampradayas? And then within the sampradayas, there's branches within the sampradayas. So why are there branches within the sampradayas? You know, people are different. There's the truth, and there's a different. You look at through the truth through this lens, that lens, the other lens. There's diversity because there are different people, and different people who are worshippers of the Supreme Lord. They may like this, they may like that, they may like the other. And that's fine. Just like every one of, I said this yesterday, every one of us here, we didn't, I mean, the exception of those who were youth who were growing up in the Hare Krishna movement, the rest of us didn't start with this. So we had some, you know, as the air carries different aromas, the mind carries different conceptions of life. So we had some conception based upon whatever. Family and what we heard and what we read, what we understood, and put the packet together, we carrying conception. Then along came, you know, Lord Chaitanya's teachings. So it's different. So it doesn't mean Madhva's teachings aren't right or Ramanujacharya's teachings aren't right. It's just different lens of looking at the same thing. So why is there diversity? Because there's diversity. Why different flowers? Why not just one flower? It's the nature. It's the reality is one, and there are different ways of perceiving, describing, and experiencing that reality. That's just fine. And even within one sampradaya, there are different acharyas that emphasize this and different that emphasize that. But there's a core. Vishnu. There's one supreme, and all others are his subordinate. That's a pillar. So there are different ways of saying things. Now, there are, I'm going light on it. You can go a little bit stronger than light on it. Madhva took exception to some of the things that Ramanujacharya wrote. You know, Vishishta Dvaita wasn't good enough. It's Dvaita, not Vishishta Advaita. Yes, Hari has Vishishtas. And those Vishishtas are distinct, please. Not Vishishta Advaita. Stick on, anyway.
Yes, Maharaj. My question, I had 2 questions. One of them was in connection to what Prabhu asked. So if Madhvacharya and Bhima and Hanuman are all incarnations of Vayu, so...
I'm listening. My head is tilted back. I'm listening carefully.
Okay.
They're angsas. You know what an angsa is? A partial expansion of. There's Vayu and there's a partial expansion of Vayu. Demigods, under the order of the Supreme Lord, can can manifest partial expansions. And that's what each of them did.
But Vayu being a position, is it that different devotees occupying that position at different times manifested these different?
Yes. Under the order of Narayana said to Vayu, Lord Vishnu said to the Devas, to deal with Ravana, do this. And so they did this. Expansions of yourselves. So they did this. They're anksas. Expansions of yourself. Now, you and I can't expand ourselves. But Devas, when ordered by the Supreme Lord, they can do such things. He can do anything. Such is Sankalpa Shakti. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. We've heard that we should get knowledge in disciplic succession. So, in our, as we're moving,
We're having a problem with the sound system. Is it battery going bad? Keep going. Let's see what happens.
so we see that as we're going,
We see that what?
as we're going in the disciplic succession, there's a little bit difference as we go down. So how do we understand that?
No problem. The essence is the same, and there are different ways of seeing the same thing with a different lens, as long as the essence doesn't change. A classic example. Baladev Vidyabhusan and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, not only they were contemporaries, but Baladev was a disciple, a Shiksha disciple. Of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And in their Bhagavad Gita commentary, they say diametrically opposite things about a certain phrase in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The armies were unlimited and the armies were limited. Same word interpreted two opposite ways. It's a different way of looking at it. It's not like Baladev was an uppity upstart and wanted to say something and outsmart his guru. You just have a lens to which they look at things. And that's just one generation to the next generation, a faithful disciple. So one can see the same thing through a different lens, and it's provided because there's this nice saying I like very much. It's from Brahma Samhita. I'll say it slowly. Yadrashi Shraddha Siddhi Bhavati Tadrashi. Yadrashi Tadrashi. Whereas this, therefore that. Yadrashi Tadrashi. Siddhi Bhavati means, Bhaktisiddhanta's translation is that one gets realization. Siddhi, he translates as realization. Siddhi Bhavati. According to what? Shraddha. So it's not that Baladev Shraddha and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Shraddha were incomplete. There's difference. And according to that difference of Shraddha, they saw the same thing this way or that way. And it's okay. It's okay. They followed the rules of Sanskrit, and they had this realization. And they wrote their realization without being uppity towards the other one. So, if there's diversity, it's similar to this other question. The different sampradayas and why not one and so forth. So, does that answer your question? You have a follow-up. Go ahead. Can you get the microphone back? How do we do what?
How do we understand as it is?
What is Krishna's what?
As it is, like what's coming from Krishna? How do we understand based on that diversity? What is the essence?
You have to have I'm sorry to say, you have to have a little intelligence. It's precious. But Krishna gives intelligence. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yenama. So Krishna gives intelligence, dadami buddhi yogam. He gives intelligence unto those who want to come to him, and he gives the intelligence how to come to him. So you and I are weak. And there's our founder Acharya, he's strong. Fix it. Technology. We hear from him, and that's sufficient. Now, as you and I and each one of us mature in our Krishna bhakti, we may develop some particular affinity towards Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur or Baladev's rendering of something. That the foundation for us is our founder Acharya, because we're faithful to our founder Acharya. And then there's predecessor acharyas that emphasize this or emphasize that. And as we mature, so your question, at least my understanding of your question is, how do we go further in our bhakti life in addition to, not instead of, the foundation, the as it is version? Well, we recognize as you mature, there are different ways of looking at the same thing. And it's not if this is right, then that's wrong, and if that's right, then this is wrong. They can be both right. So then we have to have a little intelligence and understand, is the person that we're reading from or hearing from in disciplic succession? Are they faithful to the predecessor acharyas? Are they giving transparent renderings of as it is? So that takes some intelligence, some discerning capacity. And supposing you don't have that discerning, just stay with Bhagavad Gita as it is. Because I've come across people that get confused. So don't get confused. So it's become very well grounded in the Bhaktivedanta purports before going to other things and getting bewildered. It happens. You know any bewildered people? I know some bewildered people. And it's once they start getting bewildered, it's how to unbewilder them. It's how to pull the plug. Because, they lost their bearings. It's sad. They're sincere, but they lost their bearings. And they start bouncing around. So be cautious. And be in the company of those that are cautious and mature and can guide you, so you don't have to go through that confusion thing. And if you don't have such person, then don't go off into la la land and start reading stuff and getting bewildered. That's intelligence. Anything else? Let's see if you got something, but let's see if there's somebody else. Anybody else in the room? Okay.
Not sure how to ask this question, but Madhvacarya at a very young personality, took sannyasa at a very young age,
18.
18. And this can be correlated to today's time where a lot of us are on the path of bhakti,
Yes.
and we don't preach to take sannyas you use from
That's right. That's right.
So I'm just trying to understand which personality is supposed to be followed and
Oh, he's exceptional. That's the answer. He was exceptional from the get-go. He was exceptional from the get-go. Everything was precocious. He just started at an early age to write and et cetera, receive upanayana at an early age. He was a super excellent person. So that's the exception. Now you're back to your question. To emulate the example-setting persons, we recognize the example-setting persons are exceptions. We don't imitate. Well, let's go back to his contemplation at the age of 12. According to his biography, his contemplation was, people will start to think seriously about the absolute truth only after they have become a little detached from materialism. Therefore, let me take this path, because it's my nature anyways, and it will be inspiring. So the inspiration for the general folks is not imitate, but go in the direction of detachment from materialism. Paramahansa sannyasi at 12, not just a sannyasi, not just a brahmachari. So we don't imitate, but we understand the principle. The principle is detachment from materialism, and as suits us. I can say about myself, it wasn't difficult. It's quite easy. It's because it was natural. It was quite natural to, et cetera, et cetera. And mom and dad didn't interfere. I was fortunate. They didn't hammer. They could have. Quietly, they wanted to. But they didn't interfere. No, someone may want to interfere. So, this little discussion between Madhva or Vasudev and his father is a good discussion for parents that think otherwise, like Madhvacarya was thinking. It wasn't about himself. It wasn't about his wife either. It was about the well-being of their son. It was really about the well-being of their son. But they had some other concern when we're old and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay. You have the last question. Here comes the microphone. Do we have any questions online? No. Okay. Go ahead, speak.
Again, related to the questions that we have had today and yesterday regarding the different sampradayas. So, and the differences of the different sampradayas. So, is it correct to think that, is it correct to have this disposition of having some philosophical flexibility in how we approach, Shastra or the philosophy, given that there are different sampradayas, and as you mentioned, there's different variety because people are different. So sometimes we may be a little fanatical about our understanding. So is this encouraging us to be more flexible?
Yeah, respectful, and not just flexible. Respectful. A Sri Vaishnava doesn't have to think like me. And I don't have to think like a Sri Vaishnava. I mean, the example I gave yesterday was, two way up there in the Sri Vaishnava tradition became ardent followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Venkatabhata would have also, except he was the head priest. He couldn't just like move to Vrindavan. He was the head priest. But he had deep appreciation. And as I mentioned, in generations later, it's carried on to generations later. Deep appreciation, not cosmetic, genuine, deep appreciation. But is faithful to their tradition. While being, so that's in Bhaktisiddhanta, a major function or mission was helping the sampradayas respect the essences that are the same. Anyway, without going into that more.
Expand this to other religions as well?
Oh, yeah. At the same time, be faithful. How many times, n number of times, Prabhupada would say, follow your religion. You find the name of God and chant that name of God. But when you not just chant the name of God, but follow thou shalt not kill, how abundantly, look at, this is Texas. And how many cattle ranches are here in Texas, in Christian land? I mean, follow the teachings, please. Not just a label. And be respectful of those that are following, and encourage people to follow. You don't have to give up Dadaism and take this and follow your teachings, please. And if you find these teachings are going to help you follow your teachings, then accept it. Anyway. That's it. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You can fit a lot of people in your house.